A few weeks ago, YouTuber Juniper released a video that talks about the squirrel-like attention span we humans seem to have in the modern day, and how that is affecting the gaming industry. I highly recommend giving her video a full watch, and I want to dig a little bit deeper into why we are having this problem. If you're worried about what shortened attention spans are doing to gaming, don't worry, it gets worse. The same issues are plaguing books, movies, and basically every other form of creative media that we have. I'm not a game dev, but I do work in an industry that studies how people interact with both media and tech. And this is something I've been worried about for many years now. You weren't just born into this world as a dopamine hunting, screen tapping monkey. Let's talk about how we got here. There are two big systemic reasons why gaming is being ruined by shortened attention spans and is getting sucked into a soul-sucking doom loop. The first reason has to do with the gaming industry itself, but not actually anything to do with gaming per se. The fact is that the gaming industry is an industry, and like any other industry in the modern day, it is driven by the desire to make money. It's not original to say that the profit-hungry corporate suits, especially at big gaming companies, are behind the poor decision-making that leads to a worse gaming experience. Something I don't think gets enough attention, though, is the type of profit-seeking that is happening right now. If we were in a system where gaming companies released a game simply hoping to make more money than they spent making that game, then we wouldn't really have this problem, or at least we wouldn't have it at this scale. No, instead the system that we have is one that prioritizes growth, specifically growth in profit, quarter after quarter, year after year. This means that most major game companies, and probably some minor ones, have this constant need to prove to investors that they made more money this year than they did last year, over and over again. It's not just enough to make a profit, or even a really big profit, it has to be a constantly increasingly large profit. If you're thinking, well, I only play games by indie developers, and I don't really care about major titles, then what happens when your favorite indie game company gets bought out by Ubisoft or EA or Microsoft or whatever? Because that's another way that big gaming companies try to prove that they are constantly making more and more money. They buy out their competitors and indie companies to have both instant access to more intellectual property and to have an even bigger market share of the gaming industry. And indie companies, while they might want to say no on the basis of preserving game quality, often agree to be bought out because it's hard to say no to a multi-million-dollar deal. So how does this tie into attention spans ruining gaming? The system that we're in that prioritizes growth and profit leads gaming companies to make decisions that are good for investors, not good for gamers. So if it's increasingly profitable to release games that are soulless, endless, mindless pits of attention-grabbing nonsense, that is what the gaming companies will do. They will also try to more heavily monetize games through slimy tactics such as subscription models, battle passes, microtransactions, and constant DLC drops. I don't want to paint all of the people at these gaming companies with one stroke, though. Many of the developers and engineers working there still do believe in delivering high-quality, story-driven games. They don't want to produce endless runner slop that looks like it's AI generated. And if it's not already AI generated, it soon will be. As a side note, I really do worry about what AI is going to do to the already cursed mobile gaming industry. The real issue here is that at the end of the day, it's not the actual developers that are calling the shots on the final product that gets rolled out to the consumers. It's the company's management that does that, and often the people in those higher up positions, especially at the C-suite level, have never played or built a game in their life. That means that they don't know much about the gaming industry beyond how to monetize the art of gaming to within an inch of its life, and then some. Many different people have talked about this phenomenon, and it's often referred to as inshitification or the rot economy. This is an issue that I've talked about elsewhere on this channel and will likely continue to talk about in the future. In short, the growth-obsessed business model of the gaming industry is incentivizing it to produce crappy games meant to hijack your attention span. But the gaming industry didn't break our brains to begin with. It's just taking advantage of our already stimulus-addicted minds. This brings me to the second big systemic reason why we are in this attention span mess. And it's also why, in my opinion, our attention spans are so short. This has to do with how technology has evolved in the last decade or so, largely outside of the world of gaming. It's something that Juniper hinted at in her video, but didn't discuss in length. There are three twin demons, triplet demons, that have converged to become the ultimate downfall of the modern human attention span. The first demon is the advent of the smartphone. Recent studies show that up to 71% of the world's population owns a smartphone. In developed countries like the United States, that rate is closer to 97%. This means that the vast majority of the world's population, including children, have instant access to wondrous mini computers that fit in their pockets. And wondrous they are, but did we ever stop to think about how addictive having a fast, shiny mini computer literally at your fingertips is? Did we ever question that we constantly have these phones either on our physical bodies or easily within reach, even when we sleep? The reduced barrier to high-octane stimulation is just something that humanity hasn't ever had to contend with before, psychologically, physically, or otherwise. Prior to the smartphone and tablet era, the most portable gaming devices we had were either a laptop or a handheld gaming system like a Game Boy. Before that, it was a desktop computer. Before that, it was a console that you plugged into your TV. And do you see where I'm going with this? The technological leaps that we've made in the last 15 years or so have been wild, and the effects are profound. Studies on this vary, but over half of US millennial and Gen Z smartphone users report being addicted to their devices. In 2022, the average daily time spent on a smartphone in the United States was 4 hours and 30 minutes. That is over 4 hours of high-intensity stimulus that we have been trained like animals to reach for instinctively whenever there is a moment of stillness or boredom. This is where the second demon comes in, the rise of social media. Not only do we have constant access to high-octane stimulus, we have the always-on content producers that are social media companies. Once upon a time, social media was about updating your status or customizing your profile with a sick HTML layout or instant chatting with friends. Now it's an everything smorgasbord of viral content, clickbait, increasingly scant social interaction, all with a heavy dose of ad-based monetization. If the smartphone was the medium, social media is the motivation. It's what keeps you scrolling day in, day out, even if you're not really consuming anything or interacting with anybody. We have a term for this, brain rot, and even though we're fully aware of it, we still do it anyway. The cherry on top of this tech sundae is the rocket fuel of the smartphone-enabled, infinite social media scroll, short-form content. Yes, it's fun, and it showcases a lot of truly wonderful human talent. Yet it's also a dopamine slot machine literally designed to get you addicted. Together, the three problems of smartphones, social media, and short-form content mean that you have low barriers to entry to an endless stream of instant gratification. Of course it's going to rewire your attention span. One of my favorite studies on this topic points out the critical importance of boredom and how in the era of smartphone usage, we've become so resistant to being bored even for just a second. Being bored actually prompts your brain to work harder to create more stimulus, as opposed to being spoon-fed it by some algorithm. In other words, being bored helps to improve creativity and imagination. By getting rid of boredom and incorrectly treating it as a problem, not only are we shortening our own attention spans, we're also dulling our abilities to both create and enjoy the immersive, delightful worlds and stories that we all love. If that isn't a tragedy, I don't know what is. At this point in time, you might be thinking, wait, if social media and short-form content are so bad, aren't you being a bit hypocritical by talking about this on YouTube? The unequivocal answer to that is yes, but you will also notice that I don't link to any other social media here other than Twitch, and I try to keep both my shorts consumption and production super limited. It's not perfect, but it is a balance that I have found that enables me to express my creativity, interact with people online, and contribute to discourse on topics like gaming without completely cutting myself off from the digital world. Sometimes, in an imperfect world, balance is the best we can do. Unfortunately, the attention span issues plaguing gaming are not contained to that industry alone, although they do affect other creative industries in different ways. Let's talk about books first. The pastime of reading and the book industry alongside it have been slammed by the squirrel brain attention span issue even more than gaming. This is less of a problem of short attention spans ruining books, and it's more like an existential threat to the concept of reading itself. You may have heard of a literacy crisis or a reading crisis here in the United States. There's been a lot of news stories out there claiming that 40% of American children can't read and that 28% of American adults are functionally illiterate. While I was researching this topic for this video, another YouTuber, Jared Henderson, published a very detailed video digging into these stats and why some of the panic over this illiteracy crisis is a bit misguided. One thing he did mention in his video, however, was a story about a professor at the University of Texas in Austin assigning fewer long-form reading assignments such as books and instead assigning YouTube videos and audiobooks because his students just didn't have the attention span to read a book cover to cover. This isn't just isolated to one university either. Even at Columbia University, one of the most competitive, academically driven schools in America, there have been systemic issues with trying to get students to read whole books. It seems like a huge piece of this puzzle is that in K-12 schools, teachers are no longer requiring their students to read whole books. Part of that may be the individual teacher's choice, but I'm not out here to blame America's attention span shortage on our already overworked, underpaid public servants. Instead, does this issue have something to do with kids' exposure to smartphones, social media, and endless short-form content? I wonder. Even more than the gaming industry, I am so worried about our attention spans being so whittled down that we can't even read an entire book. One survey published in 2021 said that 23% of American adults hadn't read a book in the last year. What happens if that percentage reaches 30%, 50%? So much of human knowledge is trapped between the pages of a book, whether that's medicine, high fantasy imagination, local history, or something else. If we as a species can't muster the time and the attention span to read a book, we are going to be so much worse off for it. The issue of shortened attention spans has also affected the film industry, which, like gaming, has seen a notable drop-off in quality and originality in the last decade or so. You might have noticed that beginning in the 2010s, it seems like every movie that comes out is some kind of sequel, reboot, or live-action redo of a film that, let's face it, didn't need one. That's not to say that there aren't brilliant original movies that come out every year, but they are increasingly hard to find. They are the exception, not the rule. Think of it this way. I used to be able to name every Marvel movie that had come out until a certain year. Now there are dozens of them, and also shows on Disney+, and it all feels like an empty grab for our money and attention. Because it is. The film industry is in the same war for your attention span, just like everything else. A lot of the creative choices of major film companies, such as putting The Rock in as many movies as possible, or having endless low-quality sequels, are to create a sense of familiarity. This helps to lower the resistance of physically going to the movie theater, or even just clicking the title on Netflix or whatever. We all hate it, yet it is what grabs our attention spans, makes the most money, so we're stuck in it. This brings me to my last point. To some extent, we're doing this to ourselves. We live in a society directed by big money and big corporations, so it's easy, I think, to blame big companies when a given industry, such as gaming, heads in a direction that we don't like. To be fair, these executives and these companies do have a lot of power. I'm not denying that. What I would like to see is some level of everyday gamers, book lovers, and moviegoers to take some level of ownership over this attention span crisis. As consumers who pay money for stuff, we do have some power. We have a choice. When it comes to gaming, personally, I choose to keep all mobile games off of my phone and iPad, with the notable exception of Neko Atsume 2 because I am hopelessly addicted to gazing at the luscious rotundness that is Tubbs the cat. On PC and console, I only play games where I can tell that both the company and the developers have put a lot of time and attention into creating an immersive, high-quality experience that isn't just trying to get me to spend more money and time on the game through addictive features and predatory monetization. That's just gross, and I won't reward it. I'm trying to hold myself more accountable, and I wish we all would. If you have ideas on how to help with attention span issues, drop them in the comments below. I genuinely believe that the solution to this problem with gaming and with everything else starts when we recognize the problem for what it is and what role we play in it. Thanks so much for watching my rant, and don't forget to like and subscribe.